Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Rick Alberty. I'm the Executive Director of ChamberSOUTH, and we are here for another episode of ChamberSOUTH Spotlight. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Mr. Donovan Mallard. What's the name of your law firm, Donovan? Let the people know.
It's Mallard Sharp, PA.
Mallard and Sharp, PA. Young guy, how the heck did you become an attorney so young?
Well, I went to undergrad up at the University of Florida, and, I could have taken a gap and maybe gone into being a paralegal, something like that, but I didn't really want to do it. I wanted to get right into it. So I went straight from undergrad into law school and got out at, 26, and here I am.
Congratulations, young man. So who is Donovan Mallard? Tell me that.
Well, I'm born and raised here in South Florida, so Miami grown, Miami raised, and I'm happy to be back in South Florida now after a stint in Gainesville. I really enjoy what I do, enjoy helping people, and this area of the law allows me to do that.
Not many people are real natives of Miami, of Florida, so congratulations there. Okay, so tell me about the firm.
So we're what's called a personal injury firm.
Okay.
So we handle all types of cases where people are physically injured. So, the typical thing that people think of is guys are on billboards, have you been hurt in an accident? But what we really deal with more is people are hurt in nursing homes and medical malpractice cases. So a lot of elderly people in nursing homes aren't properly taken care of, and they get all sorts of terrible injuries. They suffer falls and get bed sores. And then we do medical malpractice cases, which is all range of people going to hospitals, and then some sort of neglect happens to them, and they have a serious injury that we help them with.
I'm so happy to hear that you guys focus in that area, because in reality, me being from the Latin descent, Cuban, most of us never in the past would we put our family into a nursing home. They would live with the kids, or they would live with family all the time. But what I've seen is in these homes right now that are taking care of people, they just don't do a great job.
No, and that's absolutely the case. Of course, I see the worst end of it, right? I only see when things go wrong, but we see all sorts of things like roach infestations, severely understaffed facilities, and you're right. They're really, especially in the last couple of years here too. In the last 5 years, it's gotten a lot worse. Ever since COVID, a lot of the good facilities, unfortunately, got shut down because of COVID. They didn't have the patients anymore because so many of the elderly were afflicted with COVID and passed away, unfortunately. So a lot of the good facilities got shut down, and right now it's you've got the really high-end facilities, which a lot of people can't afford.
That's exactly
where you're talking about $10,000 a month to take care of mom and pop. A lot of people can't afford, and then there's nothing really in between. On the other end, you have facilities where it's just Medicaid and Medicare paying, and they really don't take a good care of people.
And a lot of them, from what I see, are little mom and pop facilities that someone bought a home in Hialeah, and they turned it into an assisted living facility. Do you run into that as well?
Yeah, and those facilities, again, some of them, there's good ones out there.
Yeah,
there's where it's a mom and pop place, and they have 5 people taking care of 8 patients, and they have a great staff to patient ratio. And there are other places where it's one person taking care of 20, and they can't do it, right?
Tell me about business right now. How is it?
Well, business right now is, it's bad because there's a lot of cases, but that's what we do, right? So it's, it helps our business. But, right now, they say the biggest issue is that these facilities now in the last couple of years have stopped carrying insurance. So, and a lot of these places that even
What did you just say? That a lot of these places, what?
They stopped carrying insurance.
Now, is that legal?
So it isn't, but there's a way around it that the facilities use. So there's a special statute or a section of statutes called Chapter 400, and that is a special law in Florida that applies to nursing homes, and then there's a 429 that applies to ALFs. They're the same, but it's just a different license. And in there, it actually says that a facility license under that section has to carry professional liability insurance that's active at all times. That's what Florida law says. But what these facilities, it doesn't say from who is the problem. So what these facilities do is they set up a shell company, and they sell themselves insurance.
Oh my gosh.
So then they have they have a deck page. It looks like they have insurance on the surface. So they can show state regulators, hey, look, I have a deck page. But then when you go to sue them, they say, oh, I don't have anything, right? And we see policies, I'm not exaggerating, we see a policy that says you have $100,000 with a $100,000 deductible. If your car insurance is $100,000 with a $100,000 deductible, do you have insurance?
No coverage.
You have nothing. Then
how does the state allow that?
Right now it just sort of became a thing a couple of years. So I think that there's a lag in terms of the legislators and people talking about it. And this is one of the reasons that I want to talk about it here is because it's such a big issue and there's such an easy fix to it that we just need to get the word out, basically, that this is a problem and that, this allows these facilities to mistreat people. Because, when you're not afraid of, hey, if I hurt somebody, I'm going to get sued because ultimately you have no assets. And then you'll just say well, we'll take, $50,000 or else I'll go bankrupt and you'll get nothing.
Donovan, let me ask you a question. How can we let the members and everyone that's listening now, how can we let them know an easy way to find out if they're going to put their mom, their dad, their uncle in a particular location, how to verify that they do have insurance?
Well, that's actually really difficult because, again, like on the surface, it will always look like they do because they have the deck page. And most people won't know until something goes wrong, unfortunately, and then they go to sue. But there's, the best way is to ask a lawyer who you know, right? And the other way is to ask a lawyer what's a good facility, because the good facilities where people aren't getting hurt all the time and aren't getting killed all the time, those places typically have insurance because they're better and they can afford to have the insurance, and then they're better run and better operated.
You just said ask a lawyer, but really ask a personal injury lawyer. Right. Because a lawyer that does closings and real estate is not going to really know.
Wouldn't know, exactly.
Okay. All right. Tell me about, you said earlier that everybody thinks about personal injury as slips and falls and things like that. Medical malpractice, that's also become somewhat difficult to also sue against. Is there a lot of doctors that are also now not taking insurance, or they must have insurance? Right.
There's a lot of doctors out there that don't carry insurance, and it depends on the specialty and the field where you're going to find, for instance, like plastic surgeons, OBGYNs, like a lot of different specialties, they elect not to carry insurance. But typically speaking, the medical malpractice cases, because there's a hospital or a facility, most of the time you're able to find somebody who's responsible and is able to pay. So the bigger issues in the medical malpractice area come from some laws, like for instance, the free kill law, which is a law basically says, for instance, like if I were to die in a medical malpractice scenario, there's nobody who can sue on my behalf because I'm over 25 and I have no spouse and no children. So there's a law, and they've tried to overturn this law a couple of times, but it hasn't been able to be overturned, where if you are over the age of 25, then you don't have a spouse and you don't have a minor child, meaning minor in this sense isn't under 18, it's under 25, there's nobody who can sue on your behalf if you're killed due to medical neglect.
So here's a man that's 60, never had kids, but is married, but got divorced, cannot sue.
Nope. No matter how clear it is, you can't bring a wrongful death case, right? You can't, and there's no non-economic damages like pain and suffering for the family. And it's a very strange law because, for instance, you could have someone who, say, has 3 kids or 4 kids or however many, but if they're over the age of 25,
they still don't qualify.
That's it. They don't qualify.
That's crazy. Yeah. Are you guys handling a lot of those medical malpractice cases right now?
Yeah, that's primarily what we do is medical malpractice in those nursing home cases that I talked about.
Tell me about medical malpractice. What kind of cases are you talking about?
Well, medical malpractice cases are often very serious, like catastrophic injuries or death, pretty much. So a lot of birth injury cases, for instance, like a shoulder dystocia where children are born and then the doctor pulls on the child's head as it's coming out. So you get an arm that doesn't work, essentially. Stuff like that. Stroke cases where they don't catch the stroke and or something given the wrong medication and then the person has a stroke and part of their body doesn't work. All sorts of catastrophic injuries like that.
You know what? You just mentioned something about giving wrong medication. every time that we put my mother-in-law or my mother into the hospital for whatever case, we got to make sure there's a family member there almost at all times, because it's amazing. My mother-in-law has an issue. She has a pacemaker in her heart. She's got issues with her heart. She's got issues with her blood pressure. 85 years old. But if they've given her different types of medicines in the hospital that could affect the heart because of the pacemaker, and if my wife wouldn't be there, they would have given it to her.
Yeah, and by the way, I would say to even people who are in nursing homes or hospitals, being there and being present for a loved one who's in, especially a nursing home, is huge, because those people get treated better when they know there's family here, they're on top of things, and they're involved. Those people end up getting better care, and it's not the way it should be, but it's the way it is. When you have someone who's there on top of things.
When you were thinking about becoming an attorney, you were young, like you are still, and you were thinking about becoming an attorney. Did you think that you were going to go directly into this kind of field?
Well, my father does it, right? So my father's the Mallard Sharp. And so,
right.
And then my uncle actually up in Sarasota also does this type of law. So, funny, everybody in my family told me not to be a lawyer, and then I ignored them all. So, and became a lawyer. But I did really always think that I would end up doing this, just because I don't like transactional stuff. I like litigating cases and, stuff like that. And ultimately in this field, you're really truly helping somebody.
That's exactly
every day.
Right.
When you get a result, when you get a good result, you're really, a lot of times changing somebody's life. You know what I mean?
A lot of people think that all lawsuits are frivolous, and they're not. Even though in the state of Florida, and I think that the state of Florida and Miami-Dade County is probably number one in fraud. But when it comes to a medical malpractice or a home for the elderly being sued, that's not one that I think of as frivolous. I think of the car accident, the slip and fall inside of Walmart all of a sudden now. Do you feel that there's a lot of frivolous cases in this field?
So Florida definitely, I think after California, is probably the most litigious state in the nation, I would say. So people like to sue in Florida. People often bring lawsuits. And there are certainly, a car accident where the person's not really hurt and they're faking it, or a slip and fall where someone's faking it. But when it comes to medical malpractice, there's you couldn't get away with it, because there's doctors involved. And if you're bringing a case that doesn't have merit, you have to have a medical expert backing you up when you bring the case. So you're going to have, if it's a neurology case, you have to have a certified neurologist saying, yes, there was negligence here, and yes, this caused this injury, right? Or, say it was like I was talking about birth injury cases, you have to have an OBGYN who's going to say, yes, the doctor did this wrong, and yes, it caused this injury. So in this field, with med mal and the nursing homes, there's not going to be any frivolous lawsuits. There's serious catastrophic injuries or death, and you're going to have an medical expert backing up what you're saying from the jump. So it's not going to be possible.
I'm just curious. I got to ask you this because I'm curious. The majority of the medical malpractice lawsuits, younger doctors, older doctors?
That's a good question, and I wish I had some data to back up, but I don't think. I think it's in my experience, I think it's really a mix of both. It's not really. I mean, it really is also not always doctors, right? Remember, it's hospital staff too. So it's oversight in nurses not checking on people. It's oversight in that area too. People not following the doctor's orders, right? Doctor orders a certain thing and they don't actually do it, right? And then in the nursing home case, it's a lot of just overwhelmed staff that have too many people. They're trying their best, but the facility just doesn't give them enough help.
That's just such a valid point, my Lord, because you just said that many times the staff is trying to do their best. They just don't have the amount of help that they need.
Right.
And that is so important. You've been in this business now for how many years?
Just a year now. Just started.
A year. Yeah. Beautiful. Tell me about, in that year, one case that has stuck with you that you remember that you'll never forget.
Well, it's tough for me to talk about specifics because there's confidentiality with all of that.
Of course.
But I would just say in general, the nursing home cases really even more than the medical malpractice, because truly the nursing home cases, it's where, like I told you, these facilities not carrying insurance. You have people who, mom or dad was put in there, or grandma and grandpa was put in there, and then they have a bed sore. So it's like a giant sore on their back that gives them an infection and kills them. And I have to tell them, there's no insurance, so there's no way that I can help you. And you're talking about horrific injury, somebody who died in a terrible, painful way, and there's no real meaningful recovery I can get for them. I tell them all the time, the old saying, you can't get blood out of a stone. For instance, the facilities right now are stones. It doesn't matter how angry you are, how wrong they are, how bad they did. This is all I can do. They don't have any insurance. They don't have any way for me to truly help.
And those facilities can remain open even without the insurance for the next person.
Exactly. And they keep getting away with it. And the way to fix it is to remember I told you that in the law it says they have to carry professional liability insurance, but it doesn't say from who. All you have to do is say professional liability insurance from an admitted insurer, and put a minimum amount on it. So an admitted insurer, like you can think of Progressive, State Farm, but for a facility that had to be more like Gallagher Bassett, some giant insurance company that sells real policies, not stuff that's fake.
Do you think that they don't carry insurance because of the amount of cost that may affect their prices with their people?
Well, it's cost effective to not carry the insurance, because what they do is, right, if you have the insurance, and the insurance company is going to have to pay out a certain amount whenever there's a lawsuit. So you'd have to hire more staff to have there be less lawsuits. You know what I mean? So you have to treat people better. But to hire more staff is going to cost more, and you're going to have to pay for the insurance. Whereas right now we can just not have insurance, and then all the plaintiffs' lawyers know if they sue us, we'll just declare bankruptcy and then sub in a new LLC and then keep it running. So we can pinch them and squeeze them and make them take pennies on the dollar for the cases, because they know at the end they'll get nothing if they go to a trial.
But I mean, I'm glad you're here, because people need to hear what's going on out there, because I would have had no idea that that's really happening right now. What do you think it's going to take for that to happen? Is there lobbyists in Tallahassee going against that?
Right. Well, there is the Florida Justice Association, which is basically just an association of lawyers like myself, mostly plaintiffs' lawyers, that do try to change these laws and fix things. And in this case, I think it's one where they really need to do something, and there shouldn't be that much pushback, because if you think about it, typically people like in my position and insurance companies are on the opposite sides of any given issue. But in this issue, the insurance companies can't even make any money. They can't even sell policies to the facilities because they say, I don't want to buy your policy. I don't need it. You know what I mean?
I'm not buying it.
I'll just pinch people and put the screws to them when they file a lawsuit, and I won't have insurance, and then they'll take pennies on the dollar, and I'll just keep rolling, and I can keep hurting people, and it just doesn't matter. I can keep my profits up and my costs low.
But that's just mind-blowing, because, here we're talking about people and people's lives and people's health and people's welfare. And then it's just like me saying, you know what, I'm not going to buy home insurance. What the hell? I'm going to insure myself. And, that's illegal. You can't do that. How can this? We got to get this message out as much as possible to everyone, and really try to get the Florida legislation to change that. Is that a federal law or a state law?
That's a Florida law specifically. So the Florida, like I said, it's called Chapter 400, is the whole chapter that has all the rules and regulations for nursing homes. And so in there is where it says you have to have professional liability insurance, and they just need to change that to add one sentence. You could fix it with one sentence. And ultimately, you're not really asking them to change the law. You're asking them to make the facilities follow the law that's already there, because it already says that they have to have the insurance. They're just skirting the law by selling it to themselves, or by creating a risk retention group that goes bankrupt, that they have no real assets.
That's just crazy.
We're just trying to get them to follow the law that's already there.
How long did your dad open the firm, Donovan and Mallard?
It was a little over 20 years ago, I believe. 20
Where are you guys
25 years
located?
ago. Just in Pinecrest on 104, right near 104th and US 1.
And how can people get a hold of you?
Well, they can call our office.
What's the number?
305-461-4800.
Okay. And what's your email address, Donovan?
My email is just my name, Donovan, Donevan. It's spelled a little weird. It's at mslawcenter.com.
You want to repeat that again?
Donevan at mslawcenter.com.
I'm not going to let you go yet because I want to ask you now. You joined Chamber South not too long ago.
Right.
Tell me, why did you join Chamber South?
Well, it's one of those things that, it's important to get out there, especially as someone in my field. It's there's a lot of people doing what I'm doing. So it's important to get out there and meet people, and it's important to get out there and build a network of people. And Chamber South is one that I had heard of. And so I joined, or visited once actually, and everybody was so friendly and everybody was so inviting that I decided to join the chapter. I think it's been great so far.
Thank you. I appreciate you being a chamber member. And we're going to start something now. We're going to reinstitute again. We're going to start going to some people's businesses and doing small videos. Love to go to your firm and highlight you guys as one of our members.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, so we could talk about what your business is all about, and we could put that on reels and stuff like that. Is there anything else you want to tell the speakers today? I mean, the listeners today?
No, just to be careful about where you're putting your loved ones, really, is the main thing. And then the other thing is, even if it's not about a lawsuit, but you just, are going to put your sister, your brother, your father, your grandfather into a facility, you can call me and just ask me which one's good, which one's bad. Where should I not put my parents? Where should I put my parents? Because I'll answer all those calls.
So most people wouldn't be able to find that by themselves.
Right.
Right? I mean, they would need an attorney like yourself to at least look at it and say,
right. I mean, you can go and then look, but a lot of times, the clients will say, when I first looked, it was great. They were all smiling. And then after 2 weeks, it was a disaster. That's what happens.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Well, Donovan, thank you so much for being here today. On 3, we're going to say goodbye to everybody on that camera there. I appreciate you as a chamber member. I appreciate you as what you're doing as your job. You're really helping out the people out there. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have an issue, if you have a loved one you're going to put in a facility, an assisted facility, or if you have an issue of a doctor that did something wrong or a hospital worker, call Donovan. All right, he's going to try to help you guys out, and he's going to try to get it solved, and he's going to let you know if there was or there wasn't something done wrong. Okay?
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
1, 2, 3. Bye, everyone.
Bye.